what happens when a big action project brings together a Hollywood writer, a Hong Kong director, and a star trying to hold on to his career. Out of that combo came a film about counterfeit goods, hidden explosives, and a man pulled into a conspiracy he never saw coming. So how did an outlandish action film turn into on-set accidents, studio interference, and a production filled with problems that changed the final result? Let's find out. This is the history of Knockoff. The idea started as an action thriller written by Stephen E. Souza, the guy behind Die Hard, Commando, and Street Fighter. Then Tsui Hark came on board for his second American film after Double Team, and he pushed to shoot the film in Hong Kong. From there, the concept took shape around the world of counterfeit goods, exploding toys, and the CIA. The story was built around a fashion businessman who gets pulled into a much bigger situation. The movie's title carried both sides of that idea. It referred to fake goods and also suggested knocking people off. Hark then pushed for more Hong Kong into the concept itself. He brought in street culture, packed locations, and set pieces like the rickshaw chase using the city and its chaos as part of the film's identity. So the project ended up mixing Hollywood with Hong Kong action style. The lead for the movie was set early on, with Van Damme taking the role of Marcus Ray. From there, the attention moved to Detective Han, and Jet Li was the first choice for that part. But he didn't take the role because of scheduling issues as he was filming Lethal Weapon 4, so the production offered the part to Michael Wong. That also changed another role because Rob Schneider had already been brought in as Tommy Hendricks. But the early version of the movie, the part of Hendricks was only meant to be a smaller, funny sidekick role. But once Jet Li was not going to be part of the project, the production decided that role needed expanding, and Schneider became the main co-star. The rest of the cast was assembled to expand the world of its two leads. Paul Sorvino was cast as the CIA handler, and at the same time, Ka-Man Lee got the role of Inspector Lin Ho. Lee had auditioned for the role and also worked with an English dialogue coach. But even though she was reportedly promised a bigger action presence, many of her scenes were cut from the final film, which left the part much smaller than she expected. There was also talk that Karen Mok might have been a better fit for that role because her fluent English would have avoided dubbing issues. The rest of the cast was filled out with Glenn Chin and Wai-Man Wong, and behind the scenes, the great Sammo Hung handled a lot of the action work.
On the streets of Hong Kong, a war is raging.
Knockoff started filming in Hong Kong around mid-97, which is when things started to become complicated. The schedule was very tight, with only around 3 to 4 months to shoot everything before the handover deadline. So the production had to move fast and keep multiple units running at the same time just to stay on track. That pace though led straight into the first major incident. During filming at a shipyard location, a large section of iron scaffolding collapsed and injured 8 crew members, with 2 of them seriously hurt. The official explanation pointed to strong winds catching a rain cover and pulling the structure down, although people on set had different opinions, with some believing sudden gusts caused it while others suspected foul play. Eventually, nothing was ever confirmed, so the cause still stays unclear. At the same time, the production itself wasn't smooth. Tsui Hark approached the film with a very loose and experimental style, constantly trying different camera setups and pushing for bigger and more chaotic action. But that approach didn't always line up with how the studio expected things to be filmed. As the costs started to rise and the schedule got even tighter, the studio became much more cautious, and that created a lot of tension between the way the film was being directed and what the producers actually wanted. Alongside that, Van Damme was dealing with his personal issues during the shoot. This period was later described as one of the lowest points in his career, with his heavy substance abuse affecting his focus and filming on set. Crew members stated that he wasn't always consistent during filming, and there were times when he wouldn't follow what had been planned for certain scenes. That added a lot more pressure to an already difficult production. Even with all that going on, the film kept moving forward, but the problems didn't stop there. Once the movie reached post-production, parts of the film were taken away and re-edited without Hark's knowledge. Action sequences that had been carefully choreographed and filmed were cut down or reshaped. For example, the final fight between Van Damme and Michael Miller uses less than half of the footage that was actually filmed. Also, the showdown between Jeff Wolfe and Van Damme was edited heavily. All these cuts changed how the final product of the film came together. The loss of control was a major issue as well. Hark was used to overseeing everything himself, so working within a system where decisions were being made around him without his knowledge became a constant source of frustration.
And the terrorists who threatened the world.
Once all the chaos was over, the film finally reached theaters in September '98, and the response was really rough. It opened in 4th place in the United States and earned around $5.5 million, while its worldwide total ended up around $44 million. That made it a big disappointment for a film carrying a $30 million price tag. The reaction in Hong Kong was much worse. For a film directed by Hark and shot there during such a major moment, expectations were quite high, but the movie really flopped. Then came the reviews, and they made things much more uglier. A lot of the criticism came down to the same problem. Reviewers said they couldn't make sense of the tone. Some thought the plot was a total mess, while others thought the acting was stiff, and some just seemed baffled by the whole thing. One reviewer called it the most incomprehensible mess the critic had ever seen, while the Deseret News said it was incompetent in almost every aspect of filmmaking. Now, there were a few people that were much more forgiving. Variety called it an exuberantly cheesy action film and gave credit to the energy of the direction, even if the plot made no sense. Kevin Thomas of the Los Angeles Times went even further and called it fast and funny, and even said it was Van Damme's best movie at that point because of its tongue-in-cheek tone. After its rough theatrical run and being demolished by most of the critics, the film moved to home media, which is where it quietly stayed for a long time. It was first released on VHS and DVD in 1999. Then, in 2020, it was released on Blu-ray. In 2026, it received a 4K Ultra HD edition, giving the film a new upgrade. For fans who want to add the movie to their collection, I've added a link in the description below, and there should also be a card popping up on screen to help you check it out.
One man is caught in the middle.
Now, the film's story didn't really continue in any big way. No sequels, no spin-offs, no real attempt to build anything further from it. The poor box office and the reaction at the time shut that straight down. So Knockoff ended as a one-off project rather than starting anything bigger. But even without follow-ups, it didn't completely disappear. Over time, it started to build a different kind of reputation. For Van Damme, the film marked a clear turning point. After this, most of his work shifted into direct-to-video, which made Knockoff one of his last major big-screen roles. At the same time, the film slowly found an audience for very different reasons. Viewers like me began to revisit it not as a serious action film, but as something chaotic, strange, and funny. And then you've got Tsui Hark. After finishing the film, he stepped away from Hollywood and went back to Hong Kong, where he continued working with far more creative control. Knockoff ended up being his last American studio project, and in many ways, it showed the limits of trying to fit his style into their system. For me personally, I love Knockoff. It's a good action comedy flick, and a lot of it comes down to Van Damme and Schneider. I think they really work well together, and that's a big reason the film stays fun all the way through. The action is great, the story's okay, and the Hong Kong style gives the whole film more energy and makes it feel different from a standard Van Damme movie. And that's probably one of the reasons a lot of people didn't really like it when it first came out. I think people wanted more Van Damme films like Hard Target or Time Cop, or they wanted him to return to his classics like Bloodsport or Kickboxer. They weren't really looking for him in something with more comedy and more of that Hong Kong action style. But watching it now, I honestly think it's one of his most underrated films. It's fun, entertaining, and it does its own thing. And for me, that's exactly why it works. Now next time, we take a look at another classic movie. Until then, why don't you check out our previous video on exit routes. Thanks for watching, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.